The immediate consequence of the end of the First World War was the defeat of a militaristic and expansionist Germany, a cause in which the majority of those taking part actually believed. But beyond that, the end of the war had further-reaching effects, not least of which was the demise of Tsarist Russia and breakup of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, resulting in the independence of the countries of Central and Eastern Europe. But it also sowed the seeds for the next conflict in both the fatally compromised Treaty of Versailles and liberal adherence to Woodrow Wilson's League of Nations idealism. Some causes of the World War was nationalism. The Congress of Vienna, held after Napoleon's exile to Elba, aimed to sort out problems in Europe. Delegates from Britain, Austria, Prussia, and Russia, the winning allies, decided upon a new Europe that left both Germany and Italy as divided states. Strong nationalist elements led to the reunification of Italy and Germany. The second cause was the militarism. A growing European divide had led to an arms race between the main countries. The armies of both France and Germany had more than doubled between 1870 and 1914, and there was fierce competition between Britain and Germany for mastery of the seas. Another cause was imperialism. By the 90s, the British Empire extended over 5 continents and France had control of large areas of Africa. With the rise of industrialism, countries needed new markets. The amount of lands owned by Britain and France increased a rivalry with Germany, who had entered the scramble to acquire colonies late and only had small areas of Africa. And the two other causes was the alliances and the murder of Archduke Franz Ferdinand. There were many important decisions made in the Versailles Treaty, and many reparations toward Germany. According to the treaty, Germany was forbidden to have an air force, although they could have an army and a navy. The Allies also made Germany vow to pay reparations to make care of the victors for their losses. According to a guilty clause, Germany was to accept full responsibility for causing all the loss and damage of the war. Many Germans were tried as war criminals. Although Germany did not want to sign it, in reality they had no choice because their countries had grown so weak and they could not afford to start again. This conference was held at the Versailles Palace in Paris between the Allies and Germany. Because so many people were involved in this event, the Versailles Palace was convenient because of its size.
Effects of the Treaty of Versailles. They felt humiliated and wanted to get back at their allies. They hated the treaty immediately because they knew that war was not entirely their fault, and it caused a lot of resentment in Germany. This made Germans angry because they were suddenly split all up into different countries. This had the effect of the Second World War, which was started when Hitler started trying to regain his territories, and added further to economic crisis, as many factories and industries were lost with the land. All of this caused many disputes over the years, and Germany's exclusion from the League caused more anger, and meant that the one country the League could have been good for was alienated. What caused the Great Depression? As a massive recession that devastated the country, it's hard to pin down one single fault for the Great Depression. It was a number of all factors coalescing into more than a decade of economic misery. There are several theories as to how the economy was able to collapse, but the most obvious occurrence that punted doom and started the depression was the stock market crash that happened in October 1929. Francisco Franco was the totalitarian leader in Spain. Before having absolute power, he was the general of the Spanish army. What made him so powerful were several actions he carried out. Franco was the leader of the Spanish forces, and he ended the civil war going on in the country by capturing the city of Madrid. There were many different strategies when it came to propaganda in a totalitarian regime. In Spain, Franco in particular employed new political strategies to mobilize public support, introducing propaganda techniques distributed through new mass media, such as radio broadcasts or posters. In education, the teacher used kicks and curses to keep children in line.
During Francisco Franco's rule, a few human rights were violated, including Articles 5, freedom from torture and degrading treatment, 7, right to equality before the law, and Article 10, right to fair public hearing. In this period of time, many people in Spain were silenced and tortured. This caused many people couldn't speak about their thoughts of the government, or else they would be tortured or killed. This was totally a violation of human rights because people could not exercise many of their human rights. The Spanish economy has three well-differentiated stages during Francisco Franco's dictatorship. The first stage was on 1939 to 1950. It was defined by the economic independence of autarky imposed by Franco's government. After the Civil War, Spain emerged devastated and with alarming economic problems. Most of Spain's economic reserves, gold and foreign exchange, practically disappeared, and given the reduced productive capacity faced by industrial and agricultural sectors, the government adopted anti-market policies, seeking to transform Spain into self-sufficient. These policies had a devastating impact in the Spanish economy, driving a weak economic recovery. High inflation rates, a severe contraction of international trade, as well as the development of black markets. By the end of the 1940s, Spanish GDP was barely 40% of the average West European countries. Francisco Franco's ideology was mainly composed by fascism, authoritarianism, and totalitarianism. Totalitarianism because it was a single mass party, terroristic police control, and it had monopoly control of communications, near complete control of armed forces, and centralized bureaucratic control of the economy.
On this image, we can see that Spanish territory was and still is located at the southwest of Europe. This image allows us to see how countries were classified during World War II and the participations of each territory and country. Spain did not participate in any important war or weaponized confrontation, not as in the case of other countries, and did not cause any major problem around others. We can also say that Spain avoided any trouble and just wanted to recover from its economy problems. Some of the general information of dictator and ruler Francisco Madero that we can say is first that he lived from 1892 to 1975. He ruled over Spain from 1939 until his death. He rose to power during the bloody Spanish Civil War, when, with the help of Nazi Germany and Fascist Italy, his nationalist forces overthrew the democratically elected Second Republic, adopting the title of El Caudillo around his followers. He became the leader. Franco persecuted political opponents. He repressed the culture and language of Spain's Basque and Catalan regions. He censored the media and otherwise exerted absolute control over the country. Some of these restrictions gradually eased as Franco got older, and upon his death, the country transitioned to democracy. The early years about Francisco Madero. Francisco Franco y Bahamonde was born on December 4, 1892, in El Ferrol, a small coastal town on Spain's northern tip. Until age 12, Franco attended on a private school run by a Catholic priest. He then entered a naval secondary school with the goal of following his father and grandfather into a sea-based military career. In 1907, however, the cash-strapped Spanish government temporarily suspended the admission of cadets into the naval army. As a result, Franco enrolled at the Infantry Academy in Toledo, graduating 3 years later with below-average grades. After a brief posting back in El Ferrol, Franco volunteered to fight in an insurgency in Spanish-controlled Morocco. He arrived in early 1912 and stayed there largely without break until 1926. Along the way, he survived a gunshot wound to the abdomen, received a number of merit promotions and awards, and from then he just continued racing from general and so on till he became the influential man we know on his career.